the 2nd, 1981, and we're here at Granny and Grandpa's home in their family room, and we've asked them to talk to us and tell us a little bit about them, and to do a real special number that we as their grandchildren think is our favorite. Okay, well, Grandpa, what was the story about when Dad was about to go on his mission?
Well, it was a long time ago. He was a young man, about 18 or 19, and I was a lot younger than I am now. It was during the Great Depression. When Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected, he busted up the whole system and tried to get things rolling. And I didn't have any job either. My job was about to play out. I had an appointment with the county supervisors working in the county garage. And our Democrat supervisors got beat and the Republicans come in, and I was a Democrat, so I knew first of the year I wouldn't have a job. But this was about Christmas time, so I had a few more days left. But I was wondering where I was going to land and what I was going to do, because we was right in a terrible depression. There wasn't any jobs. You couldn't even cash a check to some of the banks. They didn't have the money or to spare, and they wouldn't cash checks. But anyway, right out of the blue sky, a man come walking in the garage, county garage, Maricopa County Highway garage. And he asked the superintendent, he said, "I've come to see a man by the name of Robson." He says, "Can you point him out to me?" He told me who he was. So the superintendent brought him right over to where I was working. And he introduced me to him. And this fellow said, "I was sent out here, you know, when Franklin D. Roosevelt got put in, he put his wife in there as he left Bower, and she was really on the job. He said, I was sent out here by the president's wife to give you the job that they've been having a lot of trouble with, and yet we've got to maintain it." And I said, "Don't make a difference if I can do it. I sure will take it, because I need the job, because I'm going to lose mine here in a few days, first of the year." Well, he says, "Get your hat, we're going." He said, "This is going to be in the mountains, the Graham Mountains in Safford. It's a government job, and it's a tough one." He said, "It's made up of anybody that's unemployed or tramping or stealing or begging or whatever to make a difference what he's been doing. We don't ask any questions. We clean him up, give him a bath, cut his hair, and give him a new pair of overalls and an overall jacket. And he's going to work 4 hours a day. I don't know, we're going to build trails. That's going to be your job." So, we found out you was raised building trails and had a lot of trail building experiences and road work, and that's what we want. And we've still got to find somebody that can hold his own with a tough bunch of people. And these people are they're tough. So I think it's only fair to tell you that you're the fourth man we're sending up there, and all the other three who ended up in the hospital, they cut them all to pieces, this least little thing. They don't just fight, they go to cutting. Well, I said, "I'll take a chance. I need the job." Well, that's fine.
Why did you need the job so badly?
The reason that I needed the job so badly was that we had to eat, of course. But Ennis was called on a mission. And there I was. I agreed to send him on a mission. But I had a job at that time, and our supervisor hadn't got beat. But now I wasn't going to have a job, so I still wanted to send him on a mission if I could find a job. So anyway, he says, "Get your hat," says, "you're on the payroll right now." And he said, "I've got a car here for you. It's a government car. And you're in full control, and there's about 500 men up there in this camp. There's barracks, there's semi-military, they stand in formation just the same as you're in the Army, and you're the man responsible for all of them. And you've got a bundle of money down there in the bank in Safford for food and medical attention, the thing that you need. So he said, I don't know what to tell you how to run it, because I don't know myself. So anyway, I got in this car, and I drove up to Pima. He said, you turn off the road at Pima and go right up that mountain into the Grahams, the top of the Grahams. And I stopped and asked an old boy there that had a little garage, I said, how do you get to Trip Canyon? He said, well, go right back just a little way, and you'll see a road over the railroad track that goes right up that mountainside, a good grade. It's about 10, 12 miles up there, mountain road. And it's the only camp there, and that's Trip Canyon. So I found the place where they crossed the railroad track, and I went over the track, and I followed that trail, and it kept getting rougher and rougher, narrower and narrower. But I finally seen this federal camp. You can tell them they all built about alike. And it had provisions for about 500 to 600 men. And I drove up to the semi-military, and they stood formation like they do in the Army. I just drove up to the parade ground, and I stopped. And I got out, and I just wondered how to make my approach after this fellow told me, you know, I was dealing with tough people. And I stood by the left front fender, and I was looking over that parade ground, which was level as this floor, and beautiful, and military. Everything was up to date. And I stood there, and I seen 4 big huskies get up. They'd been sitting in the shade over around the barracks, and they come right across the parade ground to me, towards me. And I had quite a prayer in my heart, I'll tell you for sure. I didn't know just what to say and what to do. So they come up and looked me right in the eye, and they were just putting their head in the head. And the spokesman says, are you the man they sent up here to take charge of this outfit? And I said, yes, I'm the man. And then there wasn't any more said. They looked at me, and I looked at them. And one of them said to the other of them, he says, well, he says, suppose we just give him what we give the last man yesterday. And I said, well, tell me about that. Well, he said, we just run him right down the mountain. He was jumping for his life. We cut him up a little bit, too. And he said, I think we just run you down the road. I said, whoop, you said the wrong thing, mister. I said, you just changed that a little bit now. He says, what do you want me to change? And I said, I don't run. So we got to figure out some other way. I said, I've been carried out of a few places, but I've never been run out of a place. Well, they looked at me, and I looked at them, and one of them finally says, well, he says, I believe this guy been around a little bit. I believe he'll know something. He said, let's go along with him. And it was sure eased me up. And I said, well, that being the case, I've thought of a lot of things I would like to do for you, boy. I know you're unemployed. I know you've been on the tramp. I know you've been in jail. You've been in all kinds of trouble. And this place, this is going to be your home, mine too. I'm going to live just like you live, no better and no worse. And if you're in trouble, I want to know it, because I'll try to get you out if I can. And I said, what I want to do, you've got a lot of young men here that build an arena. And down in Safford, I found out every Saturday they have about 10 fights. And they pay the winner $25, and that's a lot of money. Was then, too. Yeah. I said, I'll get down there and talk to those boys that are running those fights. I'll bet they could use some of you fellows if you fight. You get in the ring and really fight and take training and run up and down these mountain roads.
Is this boxing, Grandpa, or wrestling, or what is it?
Fighting with gloves, you know, regular fights. So we began building the arena that day. And I think it was an 18-foot arena. We got ropes all around it, just the same as a regular where they had for prize fights. And some of these fellows had fought in the main event fights. Had one little guy, he fought Frankie Gennaro for the championship of the world 3 times. So, you know, they had been up in the world, some of them got on dope, and they had every kind there. Lousy and fellows that had lots of pride and had lots of pride and lost it, been in jail. So I just says there's no questions ever going to be asked as to where you been or the thing about it. You treat me right and I'll for sure treat you right. That's the basis we've started on. So we got that arena built, and I went down to the West Brothers in Safford, in the old Ramona Theater. They leased that, and was having fights there every Saturday night. And I got all those boys just jogging, you know, and half a mile, and the next few days a mile. They was running, jogging a mile up in that high altitude, and that's pretty good. And I told them what little I knew about prize fighting. And I never did pretend to be a fighter, but I trained a few. So I got hold of a fellow that hadn't been, this little fellow that had been fought the world's champion 3 times. I called him in. I said, now you ought to be a trainer. You're too old to fight now, but you've got lots of memories. You've got lots of licks to fight the champion of the world 3 fights. You can just get yourself together and we'll get your boy down there in Safford. And I'll sit in your corner and see what I can see, that everything's on the up and up. And if you win, you come back with $25 in your pocket. And all the word got around that campus like that. So that old boy is first. He's going to take us down to Safford and get us some fights, or we can make some money. But I said, I don't want to take down a bunch of boys that's going to lose the fight and get knocked out and all that stuff. So you got to get busy. And boy, they was running up and down that mountain like a bunch of billy goats, you know, getting in shape. So 2 weeks from that time, he says, well, you can bring down 5 fighters. And I did. And we got along pretty good with those. They was all native boys, too, from there and up the mountain to those other towns, you know. But they held their own pretty good. But I said, well, you got to do better than that. You got to knock them out. That's what these fellas need, to get knocked out. So I kept blowing on them and telling them it was getting better and hit a little harder, and run a little further. So we began doing that. And we got to put everybody that won the fight in Safford, in those mining towns up the mountain there. And then we began going to federal army camps down in Douglas, Nogales. And we run into professionals there, but by then we had some professionals too, so we got on the calendar, I'll tell you. It wasn't long until there was her name was Miss Warner. She drove up there in a big government car and a Cadillac, and she wanted to see me. She said she'd been sent out from Washington, D.C. by the president's wife. Says they've been hearing you got the best camp in the world, and on top of that, we took the singers, and if they could sing and would sing, put in 3 or 4 hours on choruses, and there's some banjo pickers and guitar pickers. It was pretty smart. Mm-hmm. So we mixed it all up kind of in horses and had a real show. He even had a fire eater. And she said, I want to see this show you put on to these boys. She said, we've been hearing about that clear back in Washington. So we put her on a big fight. And I had bugle blower just same as in the Army camp. You know, blow every call they made in the Army, we'd call the boys for formation and all everything military. So she was just taken away. She says, I never dreamed of such a thing. She says, this is what we've been trying to do. She says, we can't get anybody that can handle these fellows. And so they promoted me and give me a job over all of them, in all the states.
Over all of the states?
No, Arizona.
All of the states.
All of the camps in Arizona.
All the camps.
I think I had 8, 10 camps. So I was on the go one camp today here and camp the next day. If there's any trouble to talk them out of it, one something or other to get it. But they had an orchestra, music, and they learned quartets, solos. Had one fellow that was a soloist. But if they ever got down to town and had $2 or $3 in their pockets, they'd get drunk and all come back on the fight. They don't fight anybody, each other, making this fight. I like to fight. I thought they was all fighters then. They was pretty cocky.
Did Dad ever go up with you to the camp there then?
Yeah, he was there. He was just a boy.
Oh, he was there. When he was called on his mission, he went up
He was there about a week.
Stay with you.
Him and Tony Webb. You ever hear him talk about Tony Webb?
No, I don't know.
That was a school friend of his.
Well, I'd hired Tony Webb. We needed somebody to run the commissary and sell cigarettes and candy and stuff like that, you know, and he made pretty good money.
Mm.
So he come up there, and he was Ennis's best friend down here. So I got Ennis to come up. They went up to the top of the mountain, the springs, for about a week.
How long did this job last, Grandpa? How many years did you work with those people?
Well, I was there as long as I wanted to stay. I quit.
No, you came home just before Ennis came off from his mission.
But that was the reason I wanted to come home.
So it's been a couple of years
Yes.
then you were there?
He came
The
home.
time was starting to pick up, you know.
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, I don't want to be away from my folks and be way up here in this mountain camp with this bunch of hoodlums. I'd be just like them one of these days if I stayed there all my life.
What year was it Ennis came home?
1937. In April. And Clarine met him at Salt Lake when he got off the train there in Salt Lake. She was there to meet him. And
They came on back together.
spent the day around Salt Lake, and then they came on.
But we even had a hospital. Tramps, you know. Nobody. We did have a Dr. Stradling. Wasn't you around Safford quite a lot?
No, I
Well,
don't
he's
know
dead
that.
now anyway. He was an old-time doctor, and we hired him to come up and he had these boys lined up and give them medicine, you know. They thought he was the best. So we got along fine. We only lost one man in the 2 years I had those camps. One man died. And just before he breathed his last, he called me and he said, I want to be buried right on the side of that mountain up there. And I said, well, you're talking about dying. You're not going to die, I hope. He said, yes. I'm not going to live many hours. I said, I know. I know what shape I'm in. He said, I just want to be buried up there so that I can be over this whole camp. See, I said, it shall be done. We did. But
Yeah, it shows how much it
Years,
meant
quite
to
a
him.
few years after that, after I'd come home, I went to work selling cars. I was home, I wasn't getting rich, but doing all right.
And then when Ennis came home, he started in trying to sell cars too. And they didn't either one of them make any success in that. So then when you went into the dairy business, wasn't it? You and Ennis.
No, I didn't go into the dairy.
With Ennis, didn't you?
Oh, I financed him, helped him get started, and he was selling milk by the gallon house around.
25 cents a gallon.
Delivering.
And delivering it.
I still have people who tell me that they remember Dad coming up in his wagon and delivering the milk. So, yeah.
But we had quite a nice little dairy. Had it all fixed up for grade A, nice cold milk. Your dad was the spark in your mother, and he'd stay up all night. Lots of times I'd go out there, I'd find him asleep, sitting on a stool milking the cow, but he wasn't milking, he was sitting there asleep. What I do is, was the trouble, he'd just staying up too late.
No sleep, huh?
Yeah, but he was a good boy, Ennis was. He was very useful and helpful and done his best. And I tell you, he was a good boy. We never, in all the years he was with me, and we was together most of the years, we never had a difficulty that was worth mentioning. Different ideas. He always met me halfway, and I tried to meet him halfway.
Well, I know I've never seen two people work as well together as you and Dad always seem to do.
He was always ready to do his best, too. So was I. He got to where he could outdo me.
Well, Granny, have you got a story for us?
Well, June, the 10th of June, Grandpa and I will have been married 67 years. And we've had lots of hard times together, and we've had good times together. But we've always been blessed throughout every adventure that we've ever been into. My patriarchal blessing told me that I would never want for the necessities of life. And there was lots of times that all we would have would be, I'd put on a kettle of beans when I'd do the ironing on the stove, and they would last us almost the whole week. And then I'd bake bread in the oven while I was ironing, and we used to buy bacon, just not the ends, but the rind. And I'd cut that rind up into pieces and cook it with the beans. And one day Aunt Gertie came to see me, and she saw that rind there, and she said, "Oh, I don't believe Clara's so hard up. They've had a whole big square of bacon rind and all that bacon. Now we were just buying the rinds." And I'd scrape them clean and put them in the beans. And that was what we lived on when we lived in California. That was after we lost everything we had. We were living on a ranch in Ontario. Grandpa had a dairy there. And the rains came and rained for several days and nights and washed.
The reservoir broke.
The
Ocean of water down.
The canal broke and just made a deep gorge through the whole length of our field. And he was just so discouraged. That all was in alfalfa. And he just knew that everything was against him then. And so we gave up the farm there in Ontario and went into Los Angeles to live. And while we were living there, we moved there when Aunt Frankie was just 3 weeks old and lived in a little house. And while Grandpa was trying to get a job, he was trying to sell Prudential life insurance. And everybody was so poor then. They wanted the insurance. They knew they needed the insurance, but they just didn't have the money to pay. And so we were having such a struggle. And when Frankie was just about a month old, I couldn't find any milk to agree with her. I was feeding her on SMA powdered milk. And I was on the last can of milk to feed her. And I wondered, oh, how if Grandpa doesn't bring some money home tonight, what am I ever going to do to have food for her tomorrow? And I went into the bedroom and I knelt down and prayed and asked our Heavenly Father that the way would be open, that I'd be able to have milk for Frankie. And so that afternoon the mailman came and brought me a package, and I opened it, and there was this can of milk, the very same milk that I had been feeding Frankie. It was from Zelma Miller. She had a little baby the same age as mine, and she was feeding her baby this same milk, but it didn't agree with her, and she knew that I was feeding Frankie this certain brand, so rather than throw it away and not use it, she sent it to me, and it was almost a full can, and I felt so thankful because Grandpa didn't come home with any money that night from his selling insurance, and I just felt like that the Lord had surely answered my prayer in that regard. Turn it off, will you? Like our Heavenly Father had really blessed me and answered my prayer when I prayed that the way would be open so that I could have some food for Aunt Frankie, because she was just 3 weeks old when we left Ontario, and by this time she was about a month and a half old. And this was the food that she needed. And we just felt like that Zelma was inspired to send this food to her, and our Heavenly Father answered my prayers so that we'd be able to have it.
Zelma being Aunt Hattie's daughter?
In-law.
Daughter-in-law.
She married Aunt Hattie's oldest son. And she had a daughter, Janet, that was just a week or so older than Frankie. And they grew up together after we moved back here. Well, we had just a lot of hard times in California, and we just felt like that everything was against us. I tried to sell real silk stockings there, and everybody was so poor. They couldn't afford to buy anything, and Grandpa tried to sell Prudential insurance, and everybody was so poor they couldn't buy it. As badly as they knew they needed the insurance, they just didn't have the money to pay, even 50 cents a week. That was all they were expected to pay. So finally, after we stood it as long as we could, and Grandpa felt like that he couldn't do any more, I said, well, let's go back home. At least we'll have our folks there, and they'll keep us from going hungry, so that, help us out so that we won't go hungry, because in Los Angeles, people don't care anything about you. You don't have any friends or anybody there. And so we decided to come back, and we packed all of our things on an old, worn-out truck. And Ennis and Clarine were going to ride the truck, and Grandpa and me.
I think I have to take tools out of this.
Well, just keep still, let me tell my story. So, now I forgot what I was going to say.
That Aunt Clarine and Daddy going to ride in the truck.
Clarine and Ennis were going to ride in the truck with all of this furniture that we had, and I'd put up a lot of canned fruit. So they were going to bring a dog named Pal with them, and we came on in the car. And we got here in Mesa on Mother's Day I will never forget that, on Mother's Day of 1930. And we waited 2 days, and maybe a little longer than that. And Innocent Green and Miskin was the one who was driving the truck. They never did come. And we couldn't imagine what had happened. So we started out to try to find them. And when we finally got to Welton, was it? Or Wendon? Welton.
When, huh?
Welton. There they were. They'd been broken down several times along the road. This is an old truck. And they'd have flat tires. And Miskin would always go back and get the wheel, the tire. And he'd always get something to eat. And Innocent Green would eat this fruit that we had, that I had canned, and maybe have a little piece of bread to go along with it. But they didn't have scarcely anything all the way home. But this dog of ours, old pal, he just stayed right with them all the time. And when we found them, there they were, stalled. And this dog was right there with them. So we brought them on home. And Miskin came on later and brought the truck. And oh, that was another experience that we had that was, I thought, was really a sad one. But when Ennis came home, he got a job working in Piggly Wiggly's, and he turned every cent that he made over to us. And Grandpa had athlete's feet after we got here. Oh, dear.
You want to know if they found the little boy?
No, she wouldn't know how I was feeling. But Grandpa got, and this was right in the middle of the Depression when we got back here. And Grandpa got a job. What were you doing?
Insurance again.
Picking letters?
No, carrots, wasn't it, onions?
Letters.
And he paid 20 cents an hour for that. And then Ennis got this job in the city, at the city hall after he quit Piggly Wiggly's. He got this job working at the city hall, and he turned every dime that he made over to us. And that was the only thing we had to keep us going. And Grandpa got his athlete's feet and couldn't work at all. Oh, we've had some very sad experiences and very good experiences in our lifetime.
I guess everybody does, don't they?
We thought that
60,
when we were,
70 years put in, or 80, whatever it happens.
we thought when we were going through the Depression that we were the poorest people in Mesa. And everybody else said, why, I thought we were the poorest people in Mesa. But we never did go hungry. All the years that we were having such a struggle, we never did go hungry for the necessities of life. And I just felt like that was the blessing that I received, and my patriarchal blessing. And another experience of my patriarchal blessing was, it says, listen to the whispering of the still small voice, and you shall be warned of danger, both seen and unseen. And this really happened when Ennis was just a baby. Maybe you've heard this before, but this maybe will be good for the grandchildren to hear. I went out to visit my mother, where she lived on Harn Lane then, and it was one Sunday afternoon. I took Ennis to go out to visit my mother, and when it got time to go home, I went into the house to get Ennis so I could leave to go back to our little house in town. And I couldn't find him. He used to like to suck his 2 fingers like this and feel of the fringe on the bedspread. And that's the first place that I went when I went to find him, because he'd just sit there by the hour if he could and just suck his fingers and feel of he used to call it beast, And he wasn't there. And so I went out and thought maybe he was around the haystack. And I looked all around the haystack, and I couldn't find him out there anyplace. And I thought, well, maybe he dropped off to sleep in the house and somewhere else, but I didn't look. So I was just getting ready to go into the house when there was a voice just seemed to speak to me just as plain as though I heard it, the voice. And it said, run and look down the ditch. And that voice that sounded so plainly that I started out to the front of it, and there was a big, huge
irrigating ditch, full of water,
just
running.
full of water. And I went and looked, and I to the bridge there, and stood on the bridge, and I couldn't see him anyplace. And my father and mother started out with me, and they said, oh, Clara, he isn't down there. We could see him if he were in the ditch that far down. But this voice said the second time to me, run down the ditch. And so I started running. And I ran as fast as I could, and it was almost down to where the north end of the East Junior High School is. There was a house right there, and he had floated. There he was floating on top of the water. And his face was just as blue as the sky. And I jumped into the ditch and grabbed him and got out, and Bishop Horn was irrigating just across the field. And when he saw me running, then he began to run toward me because he knew there was something that had happened. And so he saw me, and when I got out of the ditch with Ennis, and then he grabbed him, and he began to roll his body up and down on his legs and to expel the water from his lungs. And finally Ennis regained consciousness. And this was just 2 days before Aunt Corrine was born.
You running down the ditch?
And I was running down the ditch and jumped into the ditch. And
oh, my word.
So the Lord has really blessed me, and I am so thankful.
I got another expression. We've been to the races.
Yeah, we've been to the races. Sometimes they've been good races, and sometimes they haven't been so good. But I want to bear my testimony to all of my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren that I know that our Heavenly Father will hear and answer our prayers if we will keep His commandments and do the things that He wants us to do, that whenever we're in trouble, He'll always be willing to help us. Because I've had that tried in my life so many times. When I've needed His help and asked Him for help, He's always helped me. And I want my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to know that if they will always do what is right and do what our Heavenly Father wants us to do, that they will be blessed too, and He will answer your prayers just the same as He's answered mine.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, He'll answer an old stiff like me. He'll answer my prayers. But you know, Thursday, did you hear about how I got in trouble?
This last Thursday? No, I didn't.
Thursday, I was gotten this Lincoln. I had it all wiped off and clean. Looked just like a brand new car, and I was going south out there to Hawes' nursery to get some tomato plants, some other little plants. And I was driving all alone on Robson Street going south. You know where Hawes is? Well, I was right for the corner of this police station. I was going 25 miles an hour, and there wasn't a car on my side. See, it's a two road there, grass in the middle. But they cut that second through.
Well, just for the roadway, you know. The
dirt road through there. People can turn around or go across and get on the other.
Well, it was just the highway.
And I was going 25 miles an hour. Toodle sitting there as big as she could be, and on the side of me. And wham! It hit me. Oh, man. on the driver's side, right where I'm sitting. And I thought it broke my neck or something, and I knocked me kind of about half out for a second or two, and I kind of gathered myself, and I said, where am I? Where am I? And this policeman, he'd come running out of that city jail there, you know, the city hall. And he says, well, he says, I'm a policeman. He says, you got hit. I said, who hit me? He said, that car right there, that woman in there, and she drove across that dirt road.
It wasn't dirt, the cement, you know.
No, where she was coming was across dirt. I don't think it's paved.
Yes, of course, the roads are all paved, yeah. But there was a stop sign on her side, you see, and for her to cross over on this side, she had to cross, and all of this lawn is in the center except where the road is for the two-way.
She sure hit me a whatever.
You're okay,
Knocked
though.
off one side of my car.
Oh, brother, Grandpa.
But it so happened this lady has insurance. So when the policeman happened to be standing out there, you said,
Yeah, two of them.
And
they saw it all happen. He was standing, they just happened to be there on the corner, you know, the police station's right there on that corner. And they saw this woman hit Grandpa, and so they came hurriedly over there where he was and saw what all happened. And they didn't say a word to Grandpa about it being any of his fault. He went right over to this woman and began to get all the details from her. Well, it just so happened that she had insurance on her car, so the insurance company was going to pay for fixing Grandpa's car.
We'll take care of
Say it'll take care of everything, so it won't cost him anything. And we're so thankful of that. He started it up this morning, and the motor just purred right along.
Just the dents that maybe.
Just the dent that it made.
Facelift there.
Two feathers.
The door and the fender.
Well, Grandpa, I'm sure glad it wasn't any more serious.
So am I. When I leave the world, me to every wrinkled face, I'll leave a fireplace to paint their favorite scene. Within the golden rain.
Go ahead.
This has kind of become a tradition. Grandpa has sung this song at our Christmas parties for a number of years. And he's getting older every year, and his voice doesn't sound quite as good as it did the first time. But Loretta and Malcolm want him to sing, so he's going to do the best that he can. And it all comes from the heart anyway.
The load is on his mind. the sunshine, to the flowers. I'll leave the springtime to the trees and to the old folks. I'll leave them memories of a baby on their knees. I'll leave the night time to the dream. I'll leave the songbird to the blind. I'll leave the moon above to those in love. When I leave the world behind, when I leave the world behind.
Oh, Grandpa and Granny, that's beautiful. That's
That's
my
a
very
beautiful song.
favorite. You bet it is.
Now, I know a piece that I used to teach you, the Glowworm.
Oh, Granny, would you play it?
Would you want me to
You
play
bet
it?
I would.
Well, this
What was
is,
this old boy that wrote this song?
I don't know, but don't play. This is a piano solo that I used to teach Loretta and Denna, I think.
Yes.
I don't know whether they ever learned it from memory, but I did, and that's been years and years ago. And I've tried to keep it in my mind so I can still play part of it. And that's what I'm going to try and do for you now.
And you see why I didn't learn it? That's hard.
Well, I know it is.
And I remember you trying to get us to learn it, and I kept saying, this is hard, Granny.
I learned to play that so many years before I ever taught it to you. And I learned it from memory. So it's always stayed with me all those years.
Now, didn't you used to play for the movie?
Yes. I was going to tell that in my little story.
Well, I'll tell it now.
When I was, shortly after we were married, they didn't have the music for the moving pictures. They had silent movies. And there was a young fellow named Harold Johnson and I. We used to go and play for the movies, and we'd play the same thing over and over. And if they'd come to some exciting part where they'd be having cowboy pictures, we'd still be playing the same thing over and over.
Do you remember what the music was?
No, I can't remember that. But it was just
current songs, you know.
We'd just be playing songs, and there'd be something exciting going on.
It's good if they give her a job out of Gilbert, too.
Really?
Yes, I played for the dances. You know, I was ward chorister and state chorister, and I wanted to tell my girls something that I learned that was taught to me when I was organist. I don't mean chorister. And I was organist in the ward and in the state. And they always told me to never play louder than the singer. You know, some people play the piano so loud that you can't hear the voice.
Sure.
And I was taught in my music, if you're playing a solo for somebody, put on the soft pedal, but play every note so you can hear the tune, but hear the voice. And that has always stayed with me. I've noticed at our Christmas parties, Delcina and Frankie, when they get up to play, they'll just play so loud, and you can't hear the kids sing, they'll just play the... So I thought, well, now next time we have our party, I'm going to tell them to put on the soft pedal. So they won't...
Granny had an advantage that there wasn't another kid in this valley had. Her brother married a German woman that was trained and educated in Germany, and she was probably the most highly skilled musician in the state.
So, which brother?
My brother Calvin. His wife, name was Dee. She was Carl G. Mazur's daughter. Maybe you've heard of Carl G. Mazur. And I used to take lessons from her. And we were so poor that I'd take her over a dozen eggs. Every time I'd take a music lesson, I'd take her over some eggs for my lesson.
That's where I married her.
Oh, yes, that's when I was just
a girl.
A girl growing up. And that's the only teacher I ever had after...
Well, she was the best.
Well, yeah, she was the best, but I mean, I didn't have her for too many years. And I just had to...
did it on your own from there.
Learn by, just like you have. You are still present.
No, I had a professional teacher. You forget, I had Granny for my teacher.
Oh, well. I didn't have you too long, though.
Well, she was Aunt Delia's star pupil, because she wasn't given lessons after she married Calvin. She kind of retired, but she wanted Granny, because Granny was studious and tried.
Well, I had to learn it the hard way, though. Music didn't come easy for me. Like, you know, some people, it just naturally, it just becomes natural to them. But it wasn't. I had to practice and practice for everything that I ever learned. But I surely was proud of, because I got to be the stake organist for 3 or 4 different choristers that we had. And I was the ward organist in the ward for years and years. But they always taught me, and there'd be professors come down from Utah that would give us lessons in music or teach us how to play and what. So they'd always say, don't ever play so loud that you can't hear the singer if you're playing a solo. Of course, you have to play louder if you're playing for a whole chorus.
Or a congregation.
But for just a solo, except there might be measures where the voice isn't singing, and then you can play those louder, but never play the music louder than the singers.
Well, she picked out 4 young men. I was one of them, sang in a quartet. They used to compete, the wards with the state, Phoenix. No, we won the whole business. Is that right?
Yes.
Was this before you were married?
No, it was after we were married.
Married then?
Burns Babbitt, don't you remember? Ben Riggs.
Yeah.
Well, there were 4 of them. I had a male quartet.
Were you the bass, Grandpa, the baritone?
Yeah, he was the bass. But we had some great times there. We used to practice.
We was playing pretty regular, 1, 2 or 3 times a week in Phoenix and here, and
Well, now, come on. I think we've all said enough. So, I'd like
to... bugles here, haven't we?
I'd like to say adieu.